Alrighty, another wonderful Saturday. We gonna talk about something today that is probably gonna be a little inflammatory, to be completely honest. There is going to be some people. There you go, new follower. Appreciate that. It's gonna be a couple of people who are gonna get their heckles in an uproar about today's topic. Today's topic is gender equality, or is it gender fairness? Because I'm not actually sure which one we need. As a reminder, we've already talked about the differences between fair and equal on this show. I started that off. It was the very first live stream I did. We talked about fair versus equal. The real punchline of that is equal is everybody gets the same outright. There's no discussion. There's no debate. Equality means everybody gets identical. Fairness means everybody gets what they need or entitled to or deserve, depending on the situation, depending on the scenario. I know some people are going to say, well, why the difference? Well, because there are times where you want things to be fair. There are times you want things to be equal. And I believe the gender equality versus gender fairness arena is a good place where that is actually seen, known, demonstrated. The big thing we're going to just talk off, we're going to talk about pay. Should men and women get paid the same? And you would think that my answer would be an easy yes and just move on. And my answer isn't yes. My answer is it depends. The first thing I want to say is, should men and women get paid the same? That's an equality question. Should men and women get paid equal? But are they doing equal work? And sometimes people are like, well, what do you mean? What about physical demanding jobs? I think we can all agree that male and female doctors should get paid the same. Male and female lawyers should get paid the same. It would be a great thing if male and female Twitch streamers got paid the same. But what about physical demanding jobs? If we want equal pay for equal work, which I 100% agree with the idea, the concept, the theory, then the key part is the work has to be equal. The performance has to be equal. G.I. Jane, if you guys remember the movie with Demi Moore, probably 30 years ago now. G.I. Jane is a great example of this. First female Navy SEAL. And should women be allowed to be Navy SEALs if women want to be Navy SEALs? Yes, absolutely. Should women be able to be combat controllers, PJs, pararescue? Should they be allowed to be Delta, Ranger? Yeah, sure, absolutely. If they can do the job. One thing we saw in the movie G.I. Jane was we were going to have this female join the Navy SEALs, who are the elite of the elite. Yet there were all these modifiers for her. Modifier for the time she had to run the course in, because of her height and her physical strength limitations. They put steps for her. She ended up not using them. Well, she tried to not use them and then ended up having to use them for something that happened in the scene. But I have a problem with this. I have a problem with gender norming the military. And we do this so that the people who aren't ex-military know, we do this all the time. Men and women in the military have different PT scales. They have different, men and women have to do a different number of push-ups, a different number of sit-ups. Their run times are different. And my statement right there is, well, we no longer have equality. We have fairness. Do we need to gender norm out push-ups, sit-ups, and a run time for women? And the thing is, I don't know. There's the sports thing out of the book, and I don't have the reference in front of me, but they said if you took one woman and she threw a baseball, and then you took 1,000 men at random and they all threw a baseball, the woman will only throw harder than two of the men. Now, that's not to say that you can't go and find a woman who can throw a baseball really hard to disprove that statistical fact. Be like, oh, well, we set it up and we went and got a semi-pro female baseball player pitcher, and she threw harder than 993 of the men. Sure, I can break any statistic, but if we're doing it purely randomly, scientifically, and we're saying, let's take a look at it, the numbers, the norming says that a woman can throw a baseball out of 1,000 men, she can throw the baseball harder than 2 of them. I think the problem we have is gender fairness. I think that gender fairness needs to go away. I think gender equality needs to be in place. In the military, I'm 6 foot. I'm personally not, but if I'm 6'1" or 6'2" in the military, I'm allowed to be about 200 pounds. If you're going to have men in the military that are going to be 200 pounds, and it is the responsibility of any member of their team to be able to move them out of harm's way by picking them up and firemen carry them or whatever you need to do, then every person on that team needs to be able to perform at that physical fitness level. If a woman wants to join the Navy SEALs and she can only, deadlift 95 pounds, I don't think she's the right fit for the Navy SEALs. You got to be able to save your teammates. That's not saying that there's not other places that they can perform, but I keep hearing this gender equality, and then we get into the discussion about gender equality, and we're like, wait, no, gender equality, but we got to have gender norming. So why do we say, if it's gender equality, that the male standard is and the female standard is? Do I know women from my time in the military that could beat men in the PT test? Yes, absolutely. I went to OTS with a girl who ran the fastest run time in our squadron. Not fastest female run time. The fastest run time for our squadron was run by a female OT. I have worked out with a number of women in the military who have amazing run times, amazing physiques, amazing, physical prowess. Better than mine was. Great. You're the standard. I think that we really need to say there's only one standard. If we want equality, there's one standard. I think for jobs like police, firefighters, EMT, anybody doing a job that requires physical prowess needs to be able to do the same physical prowess. But what about athletes? You guys know that there's been a big discussion point right now with the WNBA. The WNBA is upset. The women players in the WNBA, they're upset because they're not making as much money as the men. And I want to give you guys some facts and some figures, because I think there's some mainstream media shenanigans happening. I think the mainstream media is doing everybody a disservice, because what they're saying is the women in the WNBA are being paid less. They're being exploited. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. The WNBA this year is set to be profitable for the first time. I don't have the numbers in front of me if the 2 previous seasons have been profitable. I don't believe they were. I think this is the first time that the WNBA is set to be profitable. And the WNBA is set to make about 60 million in profits. 60 million in profits. Which means that the players who are going to get compensated about 12.3 million total, they make about 20.5% of the profit margin. So, 12.3 million in salary to 60 million taken in, 20%, 21% seems a little low when I compare it to the NBA. The NBA is set to take in over 10 billion in profit. And they are paying out 4.449 billion in salary, which means the ratio is about 44%. So right there, you could say If that's as far as your investigation takes you, you see that the men are making about 24% more than the women. But where I blame mainstream media for this is mainstream media doesn't want to give you a couple of more facts that are going to change your perspective. Number one, the NBA has, 50 years on the WNBA? It's taken the NBA 5 decades to get to this level of profitability. Number two, nobody wants to talk about how in 2018, the WNBA lost $10 million. Lost $10 million. Nobody wants to talk about in 2019 how the WNBA lost $12 million. They lost $12 million. So the funny part was, if you take a loss of $12 million and you divide that out between the 144 players in the WNBA, each one of them should have had to write a check back to their team for $83,330. Because we're talking fairness, right? We're talking you want a revenue share, you want a percentage of profits. Well, in order to say you demand, you command, you deserve, you're entitled to a percentage of profits, there must be profits there. You got to have profits to share in profits. I think the problem is the WNBA players are forgetting that just because you create a league doesn't mean there's going to be interest in the league. There's got to be interest. There's got to be people going to the games. There's got to be people buying $12 beers and $7 hot dogs. There's got to be people buying jerseys. Just because you create a league of women's basketball doesn't mean you're suddenly going to have interested people. There is a known demographic that not every woman likes sports. Some women do. I was engaged to someone who was a major sports fan. All weekend it was sports, NASCAR. Loved her sports. But that's a one person. What about the masses? Women don't. Overall, women don't enjoy watching sports. They don't. Some of them suddenly get more interest because there's a female sport being played. But this is where I run into the problem of the WNBA players are making this big deal about how it's unfair, it's unequal. Well, which one is it? Is it unfair and unequal? If your league ran in debt for $22 million in 2 years, then if I take 22 off that 60, right? So I make that 38 million and you do 12.3 out of 38 million, that's 32%. It's still not on top of the men's number, but I would then have to go through and get all the numbers from the start. Do I think that the owners of the WNBA teams have some right to get some money back? Yeah, absolutely. They're running a business. Now, should lawyers, doctors, should there be equal pay for equal jobs? Yes, absolutely. There should absolutely be equal pay for equal jobs. I've done this example on my gaming show. I'm going to do it today so that it's in the video. Imagine that you have 2 lawyers graduated in the year 2000. I know, it's 22 years ago. It's crazy. You have 2 lawyers graduated in the year 2000. One male, one female. They both graduated from the same school. We're just going to pretend for the example that they have identical class ranks. Identical GPAs. For all intents and purposes, they are the same lawyer. One's a male, one's a female. And they both start at the same law firm. Now, in 2022, 22 years later, the male is a senior partner at the law firm, and the female is a junior partner. And if I give you that scenario, mainstream media is going to jump, without getting another detail, mainstream media is going to jump up and down and they're going to say sexism. And I'm going to say maybe it's sexism. But is there more to the story? And should we wait before we point fingers and say sexism this and unfairness that and men this and women that? No, yeah, we should wait. If both of them worked for 22 years, 22 straight years, and we had this level of disparity, then I would say we absolutely have to dig into the story more. And that law firm should have to say and put some serious meat on the table about why the male has made senior partner and the female is only a junior partner. Has there been gender discrimination in the past? Is there a climate of gender disparity? Is it the old boys network still, and women have a glass ceiling? I think the law firm should have to answer that. But what if it turns out that the woman only has 17 years of experience because she took 5 years off to raise babies? Is that still sexism? One lawyer has 22 years experience, one lawyer has 17 years experience. Are they in the right places for the number of years of experience they have? And this is a big one for me, and it's not just in the gender equality, gender fairness arena. I see people do this all the time. I see people go back to the date of their college graduation and say, I have this many years of experience. And you're like, wait a minute, how do you have this many years of experience? I have this many years of experience because I graduated this many years ago. Yeah, but you were out of the career field for 5 years. 5 years of experience is a lot of difference in the industry when it comes to money. Absolutely. Absolutely. The military actually does a good job of tracking this, believe it or not. The military doesn't do a good job of tracking a lot of things. But when you're, say, a technician, the military tracks how many years you're out of the career field, and what they mean is out of doing the hands-on job. For example, when you're a technician and then you go down to the schoolhouse to be an instructor, although you're working as an instructor, that doesn't count as hands-on time as a technician. So you're a technician, then you go to the schoolhouse to teach for 3 or 4 years. Your next assignment must be back working with the equipment because you've been out of the career field too long. If you leave the career field for too long, then you start to lose your rating because you go and you're instructor for 4 years, and then you go be an MTL for 3 years, then you go be a first sergeant for 3 years. Well, you've been out of the career field for 10 years. You need to get recertified that you know how to repair stuff, and you need to get certified on all the new stuff. Jakuta's been listening while building a new PC. I'm going to come steal parts. With that said, we've already talked about fair and equal. So 5 years experience. 5 years difference that you weren't practicing law, you weren't going into the job, then I don't think it's unfair that your male classmate has become a senior partner. But I'm gonna grab that one real quick. I want to put that one on center stage for a moment. Try being a male and taking family leave to go be a dad. We want to talk about gender fair and gender equal. Why is it that women in America, other countries do this a whole lot better than America does? Why is it as a male, if you want to be with your child for the first 6 months, first year of their life, you can't, right? You can't. You're basically told you can have a little bit of time, but you can't take a year off and then have your job protected. Should you be allowed to? And the answer is I don't know. I think a lot of the things that we do under the guise of this is good, this is bad, this is what women need. I think that it's sometimes an unrealistic expectation on the part of the employer that people's jobs need to be protected for X amount of time, because you're asking a company. As a result of the family and medical leave, provisions were amended in Title V, United States Code, to provide up to 12 weeks of paid paternity leave to covered federal employees in connection with the birth or placement of a child. Okay, in the U.S., our federal government gives up to 12 weeks of parental leave, and this is both men and women. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, but you're saying federal employees can have up to 12 weeks of paid time. Now, also included in the FMLA is certain employees 12 weeks of unpaid job protected leave per year. Now, I think the biggest thing is that you're telling an employer you have to give people 12 weeks of unpaid leave. And that's fine because you're not forcing me to pay them. But you got to remember, if I have a job, there's job functions I need you to do. That would be like saying, yeah, you're in the middle of this big project, but you're choosing to take your unpaid family leave. I just have to absorb this empty billet, this empty vacancy in my company for X amount of time. And then people say, well, that's my right, because I get your right. I'm not trying to trample on your right. I'm not trying to trample on women's rights, but women may, well, I don't want to unbox Pandora's box right there. Because I was going to say women choose to be mothers and they don't always choose, but that's a completely different avenue right there. I don't necessarily want to go down. You're expecting a company to just be able to absorb that. And then because the federal government does it, right? The federal government does it, and now you expect businesses to do it. And it's easy for the federal government to do something because they have all the money in the world. Let's see. Reminds me that story of the dad that got fed up with the school writing up his kid for failing to contact his mom. So he finally went to the director with her ashes and invited him to call all the teachers that wanted to speak to her to take this opportunity. Yeah, exactly. This ties right into the gender gap issue. Do you want a career or do you want a family? If you want a career, then you usually won't have time to build a family. Right. Absolutely. It is a choice. I believe that you should have the choice. And I think the Family Leave Act creates the ability for women to go and have a family, have that protected time that they're allowed to have maternity leave, and then come back, and their job has to be protected. But you can't say, I want my job to be protected and my advancement at that job and my progression and my day to pay and my promotability. I think at that point you're asking for too much. I think you're asking for too much. What about movie stars? Yes. Is there a pay disparity in Hollywood? Absolutely. There's a pay disparity in Hollywood. The problem is there a profitability disparity? And yes, there was. There's absolutely a profitability disparity. If you guys remember, well, you guys may not know this. Did you guys know that Black Widow was supposed to be the first Marvel movie made? Even before Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. was made, the first Marvel movie was supposed to be Black Widow. And the reason why they pulled the plug on the project is because I believe it was the year before was the year that Ultraviolet and Aeon Flux came out. And both of those movies did very poorly at the box office. Now, if you know anything about those two movies are pretty bad. Those two movies are pretty bad. Ultraviolet has a ridiculous, a completely ridiculous plotline story. It's dumb. Aeon Flux has a pretty solid story. Charlize Theron, amazing work, amazing acting. And then the end, you get to this it's like they ran out of movie and they just threw something together. But because those two movies did poorly, Black Widow, the original Black Widow, was canceled. Is that an issue of sexism? Is that an issue of gender inequality? Is that an issue of gender unfairness? Or is that a business decision? Is that Hollywood is that Marvel Studios at the time looking at it and saying, we're not going to get a return on our investment. I saw that the new Fast and the Furious movie has like a $300 million budget. I'll say that again. It has like a $300 million budget. Do you know how much money you have to make to cover a $300 million budget? Because a $300 million production budget means you're going to have about a $500 million budget when it comes to distribution and marketing. That means until you make $500 million, you haven't made anything on the movie. Now, obviously, female movie stars, TV stars, they deserve the same pay. If they're on shows, their roles are the same. You know, the time on set's the same. The number of lines they have is the same. Then I think that they deserve equal pay. And Game of Thrones season 8, total trash, but it's a good talking point. Peter Dinklage, Kit Harington, Nikolai Coster-Waldau all made $500,000 an episode. It's a lot of money per episode. I want just to put that into some perspective. They were making $500,000 an episode, and then until the last season, Alfie Allen, who was playing Theon Greyjoy, was making $10,000 an episode. $10,000 an episode, $500,000 an episode. But for the top performers, Emilia Clarke and Lena Headey, they were both also making $500,000 an episode. So you've got your top 3 males, your top 2 females, everybody making $500,000 an episode. But you can't pay an actress top dollar if she's not going to pull top dollar figures. Like, here's the thing, and this is one of those spicy parts that I say. If I say to you, Tom Cruise, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Keanu Reeves, Robert Downey Jr., these guys deliver at the box office each and every time. No, not each and every time. I mean, they do have some stinkers. Bill and Ted's third movie was pretty garbage. There's a couple of other ones that were Jingle All the Way, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Throw Mama from the Train, Stallone. They've had some bad movies, right? But if you think about it, I can say Tom Cruise and you think, okay, Ethan Hunt, Interview with the Vampire, Jack Reacher, the Mummy movie, Maverick. Like, that's 5 different major franchises he's anchored. Arnold Schwarzenegger, you've got Predator, you've got The Expendables, you've got Terminator, you've got the one where he's the sheriff, The Last Stand. You've got Raw Deal, Red Heat. You've got Twins. You've got all these movies. I didn't bring Bruce Willis into it. Bruce Willis absolutely could be in that line. You have John McClane. You have Moonlighting with Bruce Willis. Sylvester Stallone. You have Rambo. You have Rocky. You have The Expendables. You've got some other movies. Keanu Reeves, obviously. You've got Neo, John Wick, Point Break. So you got, Robert Downey Jr., he's Sherlock Holmes, he's Iron Man. These guys, they're known for more than one role. Now, if I bring up Sigourney Weaver, Alien franchise, Sigourney Weaver from the Alien franchise. If I were to say to you Sigourney Weaver, though, I think most of you would struggle to give me any other movie she's been in without doing a Google search. If I said to you Jennifer Lawrence, you would probably be able to give me The Hunger Games, but you would probably struggle to give me anything else she's been in. If I give you Scarlett Johansson, you're probably going to struggle to give me anything she's been in other than Black Widow. Now, that's not to say that these actresses didn't deliver on their performances. I think Sigourney Weaver's portrayal of Ellen Ripley is absolutely amazing. But Sigourney Weaver did a movie, then didn't do a bunch of movies. Jennifer Lawrence did a movie, by the way. Sigourney Weaver, Copycat. She was in Copycat, which is another movie. I could have put Jamie Lee Curtis on here, but then you would have gotten Freaky Friday and Halloween, and that would have been, kind of about it. Jennifer Lawrence, Red Sparrow, and Katniss Everdeen. And then Scarlett Johansson. Really, if I think off the top of my head, I can't come up with another one that she was in. I get her for Black Widow. Let me cheat. Lucy. She was in Lucy. But beyond that, there is a difference here. There is absolutely a difference. I'm not saying that a female actress shouldn't get paid at the same percentage as a male. I did the WNBA thing, and women are making 20.5, women are making 40, or the men are making 44. Once the WNBA is profitable, the women should be getting paid at 44% of the draw. I think that actresses should get paid the same percentage draw as men. But then, is that going to create the equality you want? Is it going to create the fairness you want? What if everybody got paid the same percentage on draw? They all got the same percentage on draw. And then the movie fails. If the movie's in debt, do you have to kick in order to the movie failed to break even? The movie's $20 million in debt and your draw was 20%. So is $4 million of that debt now your responsibility? And then maybe if we did that, maybe we would stop seeing so much bad movie making. Maybe we would stop seeing so many bad TV shows. I think like Bruce Willis is an example of this. Bruce Willis and Nicolas Cage, both examples of this for different reasons. If you didn't know this, Bruce Willis did like 21 movies in a short period of time because he'd been diagnosed with aphasia and he can't communicate anymore. Aphasia for Bruce Willis is a fate worse than hell because he may be in there and he just can't communicate and he can't understand what you're saying. Aphasia is a communication breakdown of the brain. Sometimes you can understand, but you can't express. Sometimes you can express, which I think is the better way. I think if you can express but not receive is the better way to do it because at least you can express your needs. And then sometimes you're completely broke. Either way, Bruce Willis making all these movies because he has aphasia on set. Nicolas Cage making all these movies because he owes the government a bunch of money. I can't think of an actress who's done this. I can't think of an actress who has been in everything, just making movie after movie after movie. Maybe that speaks volumes about the caliber of acting that these actresses do. I won't be in every single movie. I'm going to turn things down. I think Lena Headey is a great example. Lena Headey is, I think, the only person I can think of that was like just tearing it up. She went from being Sarah Connor in the Sarah Connor Chronicles to Cersei in Game of Thrones, and then she was Mama in Judge Dredd. She was in 300 in the sequel to 300. She was kind of all over the place for a hot minute. But yeah, I think this big question about gender equality, I don't think gender equality is what people want. I really don't. I think we need to stop with the gender equality thing, and we need to really focus on not one policy, not one brush. We're not going to paint everything with the same brush. What we're going to do is we're going to look at each individual scenario. I mean, we've got some people in the audience today. What do you guys think? Do you think that it's gender equality and everything should be equal all the time, or should it be each situation? Should a woman be able to, if a woman's a dentist making $200,000 a year and her husband is a mechanic making $40,000 a year, should the mechanic be allowed to take 12 weeks childcare? I mean, it's better for the family if the dentist goes back to work, you know? And even on that, how many times won't that situation exist anyway? You're not going to have very many situations where you got a woman making 400 or 200,000 a year as a dentist married to a mechanic, because I mean, then we could peel this onion back further, and men are intimidated by successful women. Some men are. Other men are like, I'll wear the apron, I'll do the cooking, I'll do the cleaning. So, feedback, peoples. I think you should mainly be paid depending on your performance and the profit you bring to the company. You guys know my big one there. My absolute big one is profit sharing. I think that profit sharing I think there should be more profit sharing. I think absolutely we should have more profit sharing in businesses. But the big problem is, I think if we move to more profit sharing, then we would start to have situations where people would find out just how useless and worthless they are. And you'd have a lot of people that you'd have a lot more people that couldn't find a job. I think all the isms need to go. I think sexism, racism, I think all the isms need to go. We see it all the time. Yeah, that would be a big problem. You're right, it would be. What did I just see? 10% of your workforce does 50% of your work. 10% of the workforce does 50% of the work. So if you have 100 employees, 10 of them are doing half the work. If you have 10,000 employees, right? 1,000 of your employees are doing 50% of the work. Well, my response to that is get rid of all the people that aren't doing the work. It should be easy. And I've always found this to be really easy. It should be easy to figure out which people aren't doing the work and just get rid of them. I would rather pay the 10% that are doing all the work more money and get rid of all the chowder. So it's like I had you talk about gender equality, gender fairness. I had an airman who got her commission. She got her commission. We put in a 1 in a million chance commissioning package for her, and 1 in a million chance she got it. She literally got told she needed to leave. It was Thursday. She needed to be in Alabama by Tuesday. So she now outranks me. I retired as a captain. She's now a major. But the best part is that, we put it in, it happened. But what I got so tired of hearing was, well, it only happened because she was a woman. They don't even know what your gender is. They don't look at the top of the form. They don't look at that. They look at the bullets on the bottom of the form. On that note, what about household bills split between partners with significant gap in salaries? Traditional 50-50 or some calculation for splitting the load? All right, I'm going to say this about that one. That is by the marriage. There is not a one size fits all how a household should be splitting the bills. It's not my place to tell any household how they should be splitting their bills. The only thing I can say is how we split our bills. We do a modified version of his money, her money, our money, savings money. The method I suggest for everybody, until you can figure out your own variance to this, is you should have 4 bank accounts. And this comes from Steve Harvey. And what that should be is you should have your bank account. They should have their bank account. You should have a joint account. And then you should have a savings account That's an escrow account. And the bank will set this up for you. These are not hard to get. What you do is you've got your money. Your check comes to your bank account. Their check goes to their bank account. And that's their money. That's your money. You are not beholden to the other person. You spend your money. They spend their money however they want. The joint money is the decision you have all decided how much of the bills are your problem, how much of the bills are their problem. So I pay the mortgage, but the money for the mortgage still goes into the joint account and the bill gets paid out of the joint account. That way it's clear, it's transparent. Everybody knows what the household expenses are. So there's no surprises, there's no nonsense, there's no bullshit going on in your marriage. All the bills get paid out of the joint account. And then you have this escrow account. Because you should be, if you want to just know what you should be living on, 30% of your income should be on your needs, 30% of your income should be on your wants, and 40% of your income should be going into savings. Now, you put 30% of your money into the joint account, and you put 40% of your money into the savings account. That savings account is an escrow account. It takes both signatures to take any money out. So there's $100,000 in the savings, in the joint savings account. My spouse can't go down there and empty it out. If my spouse goes down there, they're going to say, we need both of you present. You both need to sign. That's the smartest way to do it because it keeps everything equal. What it does is it gets rid of this idea that the husband is paying all the bills and the woman's not paying any of them. Now, what about a stay-at-home mom? I'm going to use a stay-at-home mom because it's more the gender norm, but a stay-at-home spouse, stay-at-home other parent. I truly believe this. I believe that if you have a stay-at-home other parent, you should still have his account, her account, bill account, joint account. And here's why I say this. I went to work all 3 years. I was at the fuels lab, and then for the 18 months I was here, and for a year in Kansas. So 1, 3, we'll call it 2. For 6 years, I was going to work, and I was the sole breadwinner. My wife's disability, my wife's retirement, her pension all got jacked up. My wife got an allowance. And looking back, that was probably one of the most condescending things I'd done. And it wasn't that I was trying to be condescending. It was the allowance, because I gave myself an allowance as well. I was doing her account, his account. I was saying, this is how much money I'm allowed. I wasn't thinking of it as an allowance as a condescending thing. But in retrospect, I see where some of our problems could have been taken that way. I shouldn't have called it an allowance. I should have called it an allotment. I should have set up her own account where she could spend the money on anything she wanted. Because I truly believe that when it comes to marriages, 75% or more of your fights are going to be about money. And if you can do the whole his account, her account, joint account, escrow account, you're going to get rid of a lot of your arguments. Because once you don't have arguments about money, once you don't have fears about money, you can start living some life. But like I said, 30% on your needs, 30% on your wants, 40% in your savings. Well, what if you don't have two incomes? Well, then 30% of our money should go to our needs. And the 30% that goes to our wants, half of that goes to my wife. Half of the wants money is my wife's. Well, she's not working. My uniforms are always clean. My uniforms are always clean. I wear blues on Monday. The blues magic their ass from the laundry pile to the dry cleaner and home. And I don't do that. I come home and the pantry is stocked, the fridge is stocked. The laundry's done. The house is somewhat clean. My wife has never been a cleaner. I'm not going to fault her for that. But when people say my wife doesn't work, does your wife have kids? Do you have kids? Yeah. Who takes care of them? Who changes the diapers? Who feeds the kid? Who carts the kids off to doctor's appointments? If you want a happy life, you need to give you need to recognize you may be the only breadwinner, but you're not the only person contributing blood, sweat, tears to the family. Now, if you have found yourself in a situation where you have an unemployed spouse, that's your problem. You created that problem. If your spouse is saying, but I don't have any money to spend, well, then go get a job. I don't want to get a job. If you're a man and you end up with a trophy wife, if you're a woman and you end up with a trophy husband, you did that to yourself. You're never going to fix that problem by not addressing it. I was just talking to a very well-off friend of mine. The kids get an allowance. And I said, okay, what's the allowance? The kids get $1,000 a week allowance. The kid is 9 years old. And I said, I'm not one to tell other people how to run your family. But that's crazy. I can't think of my 9-year-old does not need $1,000 a week allowance. My 9-year-old saves a lot of money. We're very proud of her. She spends her own money on Christmas presents. She spends her own money on books. Every year, my daughter goes to the book fair. She goes, and there'll be a kid that doesn't get any money for the book fair. And instead of my kid getting 6 books, my kid will get 5 books, buy 2 copies of a book, and give it to her friend and say, now we can read the same book. I don't do that. I don't give my daughter money to do that. She does that. She elects to do that with her own money. And then I hear from a friend, they give their kid $1,000 a week in spending money. That's just ridiculous. There is no 9-year-old on the planet that needs $1,000 a week in spending money. And the person said to me, well, yeah, but I was thinking about raising it. Raising it? They said, yeah, the other kids, the like 10 and 11-year-olds are getting $5,000 a week allowance at the school she goes to. I was, what? 10 and 11-year-olds with a $5,000 a week allowance? I don't know what to do with that. I don't even know how to start to address that. And that's a different topic for a different day. Generational wealth and how much is too much. That's a topic for a different day. But no, gender equality. I've noticed. Let's talk about gender equality in a little bit different of a light for a minute. We're raising our children. We're raising our youth to be toxic. Did you know that? Did you know that all the problems with society are based on this inverse, we want to blame men for everything? And hear me out here. We have a phrase called toxic masculinity. We have a phrase called mansplaining. Okay? If there is toxic masculinity, does that not mean by default there must be toxic femininity? If it's being a toxic male because I'm acting in a way that is considered toxic towards the other gender, doesn't that automatically mean by default there must be toxic femininity when women act in a toxic manner towards men? We have this phrase called toxic masculinity. And I can't get over this because 70% of teachers are female. 70% of teachers are female in the grade school, in middle school, in even the high school level. 70% of teachers are female. And 50% of families are mother only, right? So I want to say that the problem we have here isn't toxic masculinity. I want to say the problem we have here is a lack of masculinity. Young men don't grow up to know how to be young men. Young men grow up with this warped sense of what being a man is. I've always said, I have a belief. I have a belief. I am not against same-sex couples adopting children. Adopting children. I'm not against them adopting children. I'm against them adopting children of the opposite gender. And not because I'm afraid of anything that's going to happen, anything that's going to happen to a little girl in a house with two dads. I'm not afraid there's going to be anything that inappropriate happens to a little boy in a house with two moms. What I'm afraid of is we already know, the research already tells us that in single parent households, boys that come from a mother-only household grow up with a lack of masculinity. Because I'm going to be honest, there is a lot of things a woman can do. Absolutely a lot of things a woman can do. A woman cannot teach a little boy how to be a man. A woman can teach a little boy how to be the vision of what she thinks a good man is. But a woman cannot teach a boy how to be a man. Only a man can teach a boy how to be a man. The problem I have with this is we start gender inequality at age 4 and 5. We start gender inequality age 4 and 5. What do you mean, Jay? And I'm just as guilty of this as anybody else. Well, I was just as guilty of this until I got enlightened. One of my daughters falls and scrapes a knee. My daughter's gonna sit on my lap, gonna get the gauze pad, gonna get the hydrogen peroxide, gonna let her cry. Cry your eyes out, get it all out, get your knee patched up, go and play. And that's what we do for a girl. That's what we do for a daughter, a granddaughter, a niece, whatever their role is to us. We let them cry. We let a girl cry. We let her cry her eyes out. What do we do for a boy? Give him about 30 seconds of crying. All right, dry it up. Time to man up. Gotta act like a big boy. Why? Does the little boy's skinned knee hurt him less than the little girl's skinned knee? What are we doing there? What are we doing in that example? What are we doing in that behavior? We're at age 5, we're telling children that they need to not express emotion. A little boy can't be hurt. Little boy's not allowed to cry. Little boy can't have feelings. Little boy's told to go to his room and get himself. Little boy gets sent to his room. Go to your room. Calm yourself down, man up, come back and talk to me when you're not hysterical. Little girl's allowed to sit on dad's knee, be completely hysterical. What does that show the little boy? What does that teach the little girl? I think either we as a society need to just embrace that our kid is hurt, or we need to embrace that everybody needs to dry it up. I don't know what the right answer is, but I know it needs to be a one-size-fits-all answer. Coaches don't understand that grade school and high school coaches don't understand that is a pivotal moment in a child and adolescent's development. I am adamantly for competitive sports, or I was until some psychology reading started resonating with me. I've always been a fan of competitive sports until I realized something. You have competitive sports at a young age and you're teaching a lot of people that they weren't good enough. They weren't good enough. And then when they cry about it. You tell them to man up. That's a pivotal moment for a 9-year-old who loses the Little League World Series. After the Little League World Series, they pan at the winning team. They're all jumping for joy. You pan over the losing team, and they're sad, and sometimes they're crying, and then they'll say, "Oh, what a heartbreaking moment." Yeah, it's a heartbreaking moment. That kid has probably been drilled into practices and games and tournaments and this and that and the other. Maybe some of the stuff they don't even want to do, and now all of a sudden they just weren't good enough, and we're telling them to dry it up. Well, they have to have the ability to process the fact that yes, they weren't good enough. Emotions are not for boys, just as playing with dolls. Not like we would expect them to be parents one day. Yeah, exactly. And see, that's the big thing. I'll tell you the difference between a sperm donor and a dad. I don't care how big and bad and macho you are. I don't care. I don't care how much of a badass you think you are. The mark of a man is this. You're big, you're bad, you're macho, you're the tough guy, you got the machismo, you're the type A of the type A's, and your little girl hands you a cup of tea, and what do? If you're a good man, you sit your ass down and you have a tea party. A bad man is the one that walks away. I know a guy. He is massive. He is the fucking juggernaut. Like, you give him the red helmet, this guy's got the physique of the juggernaut. And he's all tatted up, tats on his face, tats on his arms, big chains. And you look at this guy, and stereotypical behavior is you would say this guy's a hoodlum, this guy's a career criminal, this guy's this or this guy's that. This guy talks about what he does for a living, and it's like brutal and savagery. But then he talks about his kids, man, and he's the example of the household that doesn't suffer from a lack of masculinity. He doesn't do the whole dry it up. He talks to his kids. He's got a 6-year-old son. He's got some other kids. I don't know all their ages. He's got sons. He's got daughters. He talks to his kids, and he teaches them how to be a man. And being a man isn't be a man. Be a man is this new, what do we want men to look like? It's also, it amuses me, because who is the most influential part of a young man's life? People will say mom, or people will say dad, and the sad part is I'm gonna blame women for something. I'm gonna blame women for something, and you're not gonna like it, but it is how it is, right? So you've got this idea that in high school, everybody wants to go after, all the girls want to go after the jock or the bad boy. And so the jocks and the bad boys, they get it in their head that they're always going to be special and they're always going to be influential. And I'm sorry, we all know, I wish this wasn't the case in our society, but this is the case in our society. We've got slutty girls in high schools. That's a whole nother story. We need to clean that up. We've got the slutty girls in high schools. We've got the bad boys in high schools. We've got the promiscuous boys in high schools. I'm not saying boys aren't sluts. Boys are sluts too. Resonate that. But we've got the slutty girls in high school. We got the jocks and the bad boys. And here's what happens, right? The really nice guys, and the really smart guys, the nerds, the dorks, the dweebs, they're not getting interpersonal male to female relations or male to male, whatever they need. I'm going big stereotype, big picture. We can drill down into the details as we go. But you've got the smart guy, the nerd guy. He never gets an opportunity to build meaningful interpersonal relationships with females because he's not the desired mate. When we go down to our primitive nature, he's not the desirable one. It's the jock or the bad boy. They're the desirable ones. And then you've got the slutty girls going after them. You've got the nice girls who don't go after the nice boys. You've got the nice girls who I don't know where they fit in yet. I'm still trying to figure that out. So then you get the smart guys, the nerd guys, the dweeb guys. They go out into the world and they go to college and they become successful. And the jocks, they never make professional sports. And the bad boy ends up getting arrested 3 or 4 times and can't get a job. And then the slutty girls, they're stuck because they don't have anybody to pursue anymore. And that's when the nice guy meets the nice girl that he wishes he met while in high school. And they don't know how to communicate. because the guy has never been a good communicator with the opposite sex. And then the slutty girls, the promiscuous ones, are running around trying to find a nice guy. Well, I think the whole problem is that we don't realize that teenagers are basically jackals and they're raising themselves now. Teenagers are raising themselves and they're raising each other. I teach my kids this. I usually take a pitcher of water and I tell the kids, I say, this is how much love you have inside of you. Because I think the word I love you is getting thrown around too much at way too young of an age. We're not having the ability to define equality here. I say, you've got this pitcher of water, and then I start labeling, who are the people important to you? Mom, dad, older sister, little sister. And I got this pitcher, and I say, okay, so I'm going to take this, and I'm going to fill up the mom cup. How far up do you want me to fill up the mom cup? The girls always, I have all daughters. They always say, well, fill mom's cup all the way. I fill it up all the way. And I say, okay, how much do you want to fill up your little sister's cup? All the way. I love my little sister all the way. How much do you love your older sister? All the way. And I say, how much do you love me? And I always, because they're all daddy's girls. They're like, all the way. And then I show them the picture. And I say, this is how much love you have left for the rest of your life. They kind of gave me this weird look. And so I take their first boyfriends or girlfriends, because we have both. I write the name on the cup. I say, how much of this are you going to put into this cup? They're like, well, about a quarter of the way. I fill it up a quarter of the way, and then I show them their relationship. I say, this is all you have left in the picture for the rest of your life. And you're going to give this much away to the first boyfriend. My kids have always looked at me and they're like, wow, I never thought about that. I never thought about it that way. And then I like when we get a new niece or nephew added into the family, because then I get to revisit it. I said, remember when your picture was this full? And they said, yeah. I said, now you got a new niece. How much? And they're like, well, damn it, I'm going to fill that cup all the way. I'm like, yeah, you see what I'm saying? And then my older kids have come to me and they say, when does my pitcher get refilled? I said, now you're using the noodle. Now you're using the noodle. I said, the trick of this is that when you meet the right person, you only need to fill the cup up halfway. They say, why is that? Because the other person fills the cup up the rest of the way, because you now share a cup. You share a cup. But we're not teaching kids that. I heard a teacher upset at the local high school. There's a teacher upset at the local high school because the kids, all they do in passing period is make out. They make out for 4.5 minutes. And I said, well, why don't you stop it? And the teacher said, because it would become my full-time job. And I said, that's kind of your full-time job. We want to talk about toxic masculinity. We want to talk about toxic femininity. We want to talk about lack of masculinity. Well, how about we don't let the inmates run the asylum? How about we force them to be, civil? I think media and movies are also tremendous to the misconception issues between men and women nowadays. Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that comes along with this is I hate the whole idea of masculine traits and feminine traits. Why is it that men are supposed to be strong and women are supposed to be nurturing? Why can't men be nurturing? Like I said, I already talked about a couple of the mainstream media things today. Our kids are being presented with lies. And you know what the worst part about all of this is? And this is why I do this show. This is why I had been trying to do this show for several years. And this show, what do we talk? I'm talking to what right now? I'm talking to about 8 people. If I can reach one person who reaches 3 people, and those 3 people can reach 3 people each, now we start to see improvement. Now we start to see things going in the right direction. I am terrified right now that Andrew Tate is the running go-to person for boys, to fatherless boys are gravitating towards Andrew Tate. And while I think 50% of his message is amazing, I think the other 50% of his message is dangerous as hell. I think when Andrew Tate is speaking about self-improvement and he's speaking about way young men can improve themselves, I think that's amazing. But when he doesn't show remorse for the things he's done that have been damaging, and I don't believe in censorship. I don't think Andrew Tate should be prevented from sharing his message. But if there's nobody putting the counterweight on the message, then what does that say to young men? I think that if people got the real facts and the real figures about a lot of things, it would be an eye-opener. It's funny, DJ Vertek is a fellow streamer, and you guys know that last week I talked about school reform and all the bits and pieces of school reform that were that I think need to be changed. And I hadn't remembered this. I didn't remember this at all until he brought it up. And what he said was, he said home ec was an incredibly useful class for me. I learned how to cook for myself and take care of many home items. And then I went through and I remembered home ec is supposed to be human development, personal and family finances, consumer issues, housing and interior design, nutrition and food preparation, textiles and apparel. 99% of people don't even get home ec anymore. And the people that do get home ec, 99% of those people are going to tell you all I learned in home ec was how to sew, and most of the class was how to cook. We actually started to have a class called home economics, which is supposed to teach you your personal finance, which they don't. So I just saw this week, or somebody brought to my attention this week, that the U.S. Congress wants to ban TikTok. And I 100% agree. I think TikTok should be banned. I think TikTok should be banned. And the reason why I think TikTok should be banned is not because TikTok's not an amazing platform, but TikTok is driving the attention span in people down to 15 seconds. People are literally like, you guys know I will never begrudge somebody their hustle. You make your paper. You make your paper any way you need to make your paper. I've seen a couple of TikTok girls and they come across my feed. They started doing really good and wholesome content. And now they're doing the same, forgive me for saying it, but they're doing the same $2 whore, slutty stripper behavior as all the other girls on TikTok. I don't need to see your panties pulled up to your hip line and your pants pulled down to the top of your waistband, barely above the line of your crotch. You used to do good content, but they weren't making enough money, right? There are people on TikTok making $50,000 a month. $50,000 a month. $50,000 a month. This is what I'm trying to explain to overall where we get this gender equality, gender fairness. I have no problem making sure that the playing field is level. I want a level playing field. But please tell me that women are going to be okay with giving up the $50,000 a month TikToking because they make videos in their panties. Okay, that's $600,000 a year. That's $600,000 a year. Now, I do want to let people know there's a reason why attractive women aren't trying to get jobs making $15 an hour. They're not trying to get jobs making $15 an hour because in 30 minutes a day they're making $600,000 a year. Some of the TikTok girls, they work one day of the month. The ones that get completely into makeup, they work one day out of the month, maybe 2 days out of the month. But they film 90 to 100 TikToks because they just do what I'm doing and they get on there and they just record and record and record and record, and then their editor chops it up. They might record the same script 5 times, facial animations and stuff, and then the editor does all the other work for him. Why would that girl go get a job at $15 an hour when she can make $288 an hour? Why would they do that? There's a reason why people don't want to go to work for $15 an hour. Some of them are getting caught up in being Uber drivers, right? And that's a whole nother thing, man. This ties right into the gender gap issue. Do you want a career? We already talked about that one. Just because we do something doesn't mean we should, and I think this is one of the things we shouldn't do because the consequences are too massive. No, I agree with you. But how do you tell somebody not to chase their paper? And who am I to tell you not to chase your paper? Although I am proud of all of my children. I am proud of all of my children for all of the things they do. I'm proud of all my nieces, all my nephews. There's only one person in my life as an older figure that I'm not proud of. And that individual knows why I'm not proud of them. But it's not my stripper daughter. My daughter was a stripper. She made more money stripping than she made at any other job. Some people heard my daughter was a stripper and they're like, I'm so sorry your daughter turned out like that. You're so sorry my daughter turned out how? Your daughter turned out to be a stripper. My daughter makes more money than you. What do you mean? My daughter makes more money than you. Why would I be embarrassed that my daughter's making her paper? One of my daughters is a translator. One's a stripper. If she's comfortable enough doing what she does, do what you do. Make your money. Make your paper. Why is it we look down upon strippers? Why is it that society will look down upon strippers? But obviously there's a market for strippers. Otherwise, there wouldn't be as many strip clubs. See, why do we got hypocrisy? If you guys remember the movie Independence Day, where she says, I'm a dancer. And she's like, ballet? No, exotic. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Why? I'm not. Why do we automatically look down upon people? Why do we look down upon porn stars? Why do we look down upon porn stars? We make this big deal about shunning and outcasting porn stars, but obviously there's got to be enough. There's got to be enough of a market that they're able to pay their bills. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any, would there? See, that's the hypocrisy about gender fairness or gender equality that bothers me. That's what bothers me. I forgot which soccer player it was. Soccer player got, and I'm so tired of the media ambushing people and asking them questions. Soccer player gets asked the question, why don't female soccer players make the same as male soccer players? And his response was, well, I don't know, because I don't spend my days sitting around discussing why female soccer players make less than male soccer players. But I'll pose you back a question. Why do women make more in the fashion industry than men? And I was like, well played. Way to turn that around. See, because I wish that we lived in a society where people actually cared about the answer. But we got the mainstream media asking questions that are inflammatory. And then you ever notice this on the TikToks and on the YouTube shorts? They make fun of the press secretary all the time. The press secretary gets a question that there's no way they can be ready for. And so I look back during the Reagan era, the Bush era, the Clinton era, and Clinton was really the one that kind of changed how the White House ran. I remember when the press corps wouldn't have had the audacity to ask a question like that. The press corps would not have had the audacity to ask an inflammatory question, because what would have happened is at the end of that interview, somebody would have walked up to that member of the press corps and said, I need your press credentials. They would have taken the press credentials away from the person, and then the press secretary would have called the newspaper outlet and said, I'm not letting you have anybody in the press room for 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, submit me names for the person you want to replace, because that person's never coming back in. And the part of this that would have happened is the newspaper or the magazine would have been like, we are so sorry. We are absolutely appalled at our journalist's behavior. When that person got back, they would have been told, you're fired. That room of all rooms on the planet is not the room that you're going to do that in. That is not the behavior. But the thing is that you wouldn't have had people behaving that way. Remember when the press room of the White House was about the needs of the nation? Now it's about making fun of the president or trying to play stump-a-chump with the president. Just because we do something doesn't mean we should, and I think that's one of the things we shouldn't do. Inflammatory news and opinions sell. It's a shame that it's that way. It's a shame that we cannot discuss things normally as society. Yeah, you're absolutely right. See, the problem is, if you looked up right now, gender equality, if you looked up right now, toxic masculinity, I would be willing to bet the French toast sticks that I'm about to go and cook, that if you looked up the phrase toxic masculinity, you would get Jordan Peterson. I would almost guarantee if you look up toxic masculinity, you're going to get Jordan Peterson. But people don't like Jordan Peterson. Why? Why don't they like Jordan Peterson? Because he says the things that other people won't say. He says things that make you uncomfortable. He calls you out on your bullshit. And that's why we don't like the man. We don't like the man because he calls people out on their bullshit. When he got accosted at a speech about him supporting Nazis, he said, what are you talking about? They said, well, there's neo-Nazis in attendance at your speech. And he said, but I don't control who gets permission to sit in my lectures. I don't control the door, the university does. And he said, but I'm also going to tell you, during that entire discourse, there were no questions about Nazis. There were no questions from them. They came, they listened. I don't know who they are. And then he turned on the girl and he says, and I don't even know who you are. But you come and you interrupt me while I'm speaking, while I'm talking to someone who's asked me a different question. You come and you interrupt me, and you want me to have an answer to a question that I can't possibly have an answer to, but you don't want me to turn this back around on you and address your bad behavior. And she just went on and on and on, and she missed the entire point. How can you support Nazis? I don't support Nazis. Ben Shapiro, you like him, you hate him, whatever. I'm not going to tell you have to like him. Some people over the years have shown me some examples of disingenuous debate, and I will now say absolutely. Sometimes Ben Shapiro disingenuously argues. I no longer look to him as like the gold standard of presenting an argument, but gender equality and gender issues. He was testifying before Congress, and Congressperson asked him about something, and he said, I have no idea what you're talking about. Is this a local thing? And the Congressperson made it seem like Ben Shapiro should be the all-knowing Swami of gender issues. And the Congressperson was like really condescending to him. And the first thing he said was, well, hold on a second, just so we're clear. Out of all the Jewish community last year, I received the most death threats. That's my wheelhouse. That's one of my wheelhouses. He said, but what you're telling me, I have no idea. But if there's an issue of sexism on a local college campus, send me what you have on it. And if it is a cause worthy for me to go out there, I will go out there and protest with you and with the female that says she's being discriminated against. And then the senator or congressperson asked him another question, and he said, I can't answer you because you haven't given me the information I need. So if all of your questions are about this situation, move past all those questions. I can't have a discourse with you because I don't have the information. And it was amazing to me. It was like a dog stuck. It was like a dog with a bone. The congressperson couldn't move on the fact that Ben Shapiro hadn't supported this female that was being discriminated against at a college campus. And she was being discriminated against because she was female and because she was black. And then it turns out later on, Ben Shapiro went and supported her, but the congressperson was nowhere to be found. Now, at the same time, Ben Shapiro does have some stuff that he does that I don't necessarily agree with. But again, everybody has some things I don't agree with. Otherwise, we're blind sheeple. Some people are so deeply stuck in their bias and or ideology, they don't even want to listen to what people say. They might hear it, but they don't listen. Yeah, and see, that's the problem. If you try to come in here and you try to defend an ism to me, sexism, racism, I'm going to shut you down. If you try to defend an ism to me, I'm going to shut it down. If you're going to come in here and you're going to defend some beliefs, then I'm willing to discuss the beliefs. For example, I do not think it is sexism for a man to be of the opinion that a woman's place is in the home. I don't think that's sexism. Why do I not think that's sexism? I think it's not sexism because we need to peel back the onion, and instead of getting in his face and pointing a finger and say you're a sexist, we need to peel back the onion and we need to figure out why is he like that? Why does this individual man have this individual opinion? He was raised in a household that was a one working family income. His dad worked, his mom stayed home. He lived in a town where he lived on a street where predominantly all of the moms were home and all the dads were at work. He comes from a town that all the dads worked and the predominant of the moms stayed home. If that is what an individual experienced from birth to 18, then why would we all of a sudden think why would we all of a sudden think afterwards that what he has is wrong? Why would we think that? And why would we believe that the town he came from is wrong? See, the problem is we're so interested in pointing a finger and saying you're the problem that we don't want to know why you're the problem. My mom worked some of the years that I was growing up. My mom didn't work some of the years I was growing up. Well, I should say my mom had a job outside the home some of the years I was growing up. My mom didn't have a job outside of the home some of the years I was growing up. But my mom liked to work. If there's a woman who doesn't want to work and wants to be like my daughter is a stay-at-home mom right now. My daughter just had the baby back in September. She's a stay-at-home mom. That's still work. She takes care of her husband, the meals, the food. That's still a job. But I think we get so caught up on the pointing a finger at people and saying you're a sexist. Racism is a little bit hard to find situations where the view is ever acceptable. But you were raised in a family where your mom stayed home. That's what you lived. Why would that not be what you grew up into believing? And then somebody's no doubt going to tell me, well, the school system should fix that. I'm going to be like, well, then you didn't pay attention to last week's discussion, because last week's discussion was the schools are barely putting kids out. Well, the schools aren't even putting kids out that are educated to the basic standards. And you think that they're going out of their way to address these topics? But why can't this be a 2-week class that every senior gets? Why can't this be a rotating module, gender equality versus gender fairness? Why can't we teach sociology in high school and let the kids start thinking about this stuff on their own? What you said about bias. There have been several times in my life that I have had to change my worldly outlook because I grew up in a white suburban subdivision, or white suburban Catholic neighborhood of Chicago. It wasn't one of the suburbs in Chicago. It wasn't one of like the named areas. It wasn't like Beverly, where you've got like your Lincoln Park, where you've got these named areas, but they're still part of the Chicago. They're part of Chicago itself. I was out in the suburbs. I didn't have my first black classmate until high school. I only had one Hispanic classmate. I had a Saudi Arabian classmate, ironically. So I knew more about Saudi Arabia than I did about, some parts of the world. The only Hispanic classmate I had threw me for a loop because she was darker than the rest of us, and her last name was Terrell. It kind of threw me for a loop. Didn't ask. She was just another kid. Wasn't until later on down the road I figured out, hey, maybe she's not Irish. Every time I get offended or irritated by someone's opinion, I take a few deep breaths. It clears my head and lets me actually listen and think before I speak. I like to ask some questions about people's opinions. And yeah, you're always going to notice how quickly people fold. How quickly people fold when you ask them a couple of questions about their opinion and they can't give you more than 10 words. I don't see a problem with people having a viewpoint. I think that in the quest to get equality for everybody, we must be careful that we don't trample on what people want. There are women who want to be housewives. There are men who want to be house husbands. Think about this for a second. Think about the ridicule that a man would take if he went back to his 20-year high school reunion and told his class, I'm a house husband. What do you do for a living? I'm a stay-at-home dad. You're a deadbeat. You're living off your wife. How do you know I'm living off my wife? Maybe I'm independently wealthy. Because we know that he's not independently wealthy. Because we know that if he was independently wealthy, he'd say, yeah, I retired, I'm rich. Right? Because that's what he'd say. Because that's what he would be expected to say. See, I think we need a lot more discourse on gender equality. I think we need a lot more discourse on gender fairness. I think some countries around the world do it right. 26 weeks or 52 weeks, maternity and paternity. You want people to be involved in their kids' lives, then let them be involved in their kids' lives. But if you're not gonna create the situations where parents can be involved in their kids' lives, then don't be mad. Don't be upset when don't be upset when these parents can't be part of their kids' lives, because what they have to do in life is they need to go to work. They need to earn the money. You got dads that never get to see their kids. And can we talk? Let's loop this around to something. Why is it that we complain that 50% of the kids are brought up by single mothers? We complain that 70% of teachers are female. But then good dads get denied the right to see their kids because the family court system will almost always take the mom's side? Why is it that a dad has to spend tens of thousands of dollars just to get the right to see his kids? Because I know tons of guys. I know tons of guys that have had the right to see their kids denied. At the same time, in my family circle, one of the people in our family circle has a shitty baby daddy, and the family court system won't do anything about that. Why is it that we have such a disparity of how the family courts look at dads? It's almost like this. It's almost like a dad in family court needs to not be well off. He needs to be struggling, because if he's struggling, he's trying. Why? And the good thing is, some states are becoming progressive about this. Some states are starting to stop the automatic mom gets the kids. Some states are starting to look into it, and they're starting to say, they're starting to say, hold on, we need to dig into this. But we have organizations that take kids away from families, and then they say we can't get the kid back to the family because we're overworked. Well, maybe you shouldn't have taken the kid away from the family then. I know a guy, listen to what I'm saying here, and hear all of it. Hear all of it. I know a guy who the mother of his child, the mother of his child, got the kid taken away. The mother of the child got the kid taken away. The kid was in the system for 30 days before they ever called the dad. You just take a kid for 30 days. You have the dad's contact number. You have the dad's contact information, and it takes you 30 days to call the dad. Now, the dad goes to pick up his kid, and they say to the dad, you need to take a DNA test. You need to take a DNA test. We have to know that this is your kid. And he's like, my name is on the birth certificate. Why am I taking a DNA test? Well, he has to take a DNA test, and he also has to take a drug test. He pops positive for coke. He loses his kid. Now, I'm not saying that he shouldn't have lost his kid. I am not saying at all that he shouldn't have lost his kid because he was on coke. But why is it then, when we have access to people and we can compel them to take a drug test, we don't, and then those kids suffer? I mean, obviously, if you have a parent who's a cokehead, those kids shouldn't be with either parent. But you got people receiving benefits. Can't you give them a drug test? Can't you give them a drug test every month? You come in, you guys know that a drug test is easy to administer. People are like, oh, you got to send it to a lab and it'd be a cost. No, they're like $20. They're these little coffee filter things. You set the coffee filter thing on the side of the specimen cup. Person pees in the cup. You tip it, you look at it, and there's like 7 lanes, and it'll tell you methamphetamines, cocaine, heroin, weed, alcohol. Well, no, alcohol they have to send to the lab, but that's a different story. But all around, it's like ta 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 ta. If it changes color, that's the one that you popped positive for. But no, we don't do that. We only do it when it's convenient to do it. We don't do it all the time. We just do it some of the time. It makes no damn sense to me. It makes not a bit of sense to me. Not a bit of sense at all. You want to talk about gender inequality? If a mother can't pay her bills for her kids, what happens? Mom can't pay her bills. She gets welfare. She gets Medicaid. She gets state aid. She gets WIC, women's. And don't you think if we want to talk about gender equality, shouldn't WIC, women's, infants, and children, be renamed to pick parents, infants, and children? Because do you know how hard it is for a man to file WIC paperwork? Even if he's only asking for formula, diapers, and wipes. Do you know how hard it is for him to do that? If a dad can't pay his bills, we put him in jail. A dad falls behind on child support. This is how stupid it is. If a dad loses his job and he falls behind on child support, he's got to get money for a lawyer to go to court to file the paperwork to tell the court he's lost his job, that he can no longer pay his child support. Why are lawyers required for child support cases? Why are lawyers required? Why? I don't get it. And this, first of all, this is all a sham. It's all a sham. Why can't I walk in, right, with my tax forms from the last 3 years? I got to have the last 3 years of my tax forms to get a mortgage. I got to have the last year of my tax forms to get a car loan. But I can't walk in with my last year of tax forms, show the judge, say, this is what I've made for the last 3 years. These are my pay stubs for the last 90 days. This is what I'm making. This is what I should have to pay for the kid. There shouldn't be fucking an entire division of the law called family law subset child support. There should not be a group of fucking lawyers who specialize in child support cases. The judge should literally say, show me your pay stubs, show me the last 3 years of your taxes. All right, you've made 49, 50, 51 the last 3 years. All right? So you're projected to make $53,000 this year. You owe your kid 28% of that. So you owe your kid $1,200 a month. I also don't understand why a mother who doesn't have a job, any job, gets $1,236 a month and says it's not enough. I can't raise the kid on that. You can't raise the kid on $1,200 a month? Shit, man, $1,200 a month pays for a mortgage and utilities. Dad's paying for the building and the utilities. You can't get a $600 a month apartment. Now, some people are going to be like, well, I can't get a $600 apartment where I live. Guess what? Fucking move. Move to where you can afford to live. But no, you got these, I see these court cases. Mom goes in and says $2,000 a month isn't enough to raise the kid on. How is $2,000 a month not enough to raise the kid on? I do want to remind people, right, that $1,680 a month after taxes is what we consider a living wage. Remember, you guys know that I did a video on this YouTube channel, and if you're not on my YouTube channel, I don't think this command works yet because I'm a slacker. Yeah, that command doesn't work yet. On my YouTube channel, I have a video called Taxing People into Poverty. I don't understand what we're trying to do with having people that are in poverty paying taxes. But I do know that, you notice, we can't talk about any one thing without it touching every other thing. Why are child support payments so high? Well, because, you got to pay 20 to 28% of your income to your kid. I don't have a problem with that. My wife and I have filed for divorce once. My wife and I, over our 15 years marriage, we have filed for divorce once. The only thing I needed to do was go back to court 60 days later, and I would have been divorced. My my wife and I have talked about, we've actually literally gotten out the notepad and separated out our property. You're taking this, I'm taking this. I keep the house, I keep the cats. You go there. When you get settled and you find somewhere you want the cats. We've done all that. The trick to it is that the one thing that's never come into question is the kids. All right, this is how much I make. This is how much I make. Boom. This is how much I'm going to give you for the kids a month. Boom. Unless you want me to pay 50% of all bills, I'll do that. But which one do you want? Do you want me to pay a flat rate a month and you make that stretch? Or do you want me to pay for half of all the kids' bills? And I even said, if the kid, because my wife was ready to, walk out the door with the kids. The kids had 5 days left in the school year. And my wife was ready to pack their suitcases and go. I said, if the kids need more than the dollar amount I'm going to give you, just let me know what the kids need. It depends. If you make $1 million a year, then is it justified to pay 30% of that to your child? Well, you don't pay it to your child. It goes to your child. If it were me, I'd do anything for my child, but I think there should be an upper ceiling. Why should there be an upper ceiling? You chose to have that child. You chose to have that child. That child becomes your responsibility. Because remember, at 18, they're not a child anymore. It's called child support. If you make $1 million a year, then yeah, $280,000 a year should go to the raising of your child. Or I would be willing to say this, right? I would be willing to say you're absolutely right. If you make $1 million a year, $280,000 a year for your child may be a little high. But at the same time, if you're going to say, let's say $150,000 for your kid, then I think the other $130,000 should go into an ABLE account for your child. Because that's the money. If your kid was living with you, because remember, kids are expensive. If you guys didn't know this, kids are expensive. Kids are very expensive. By the way, and this is one of those things I do want to say this. I want to say this, and I know it infuriates people when I do. Please stop blaming women for having more children because they're trying to get a bigger welfare check. Because I want to remind you that the more kids you have, even though your welfare check does get bigger, welfare does not pay for the kid. Kids living in welfare are living a shitty life. Kids living on welfare are living a shitty life. Period. Except for the ones that are doing what I saw as a teacher in a poor neighborhood. Kids get out of an Escalade every day. Dad drops the kids off, they get out of an Escalade. Kids walk in, every couple of months they have the new Jordans. Or the new LeBrons, or the new Kobe's, or whatever. But then when I'm standing there, they get their free meal card because the way they were living was dad and mom were living in the same house. But they weren't married. They were living like a married couple, but they weren't married. And so mom was getting welfare, free meals, free school, free this, free that. And then free everything, WIC, Link, all that. But dad was making good money. Well, they were just scamming the system. That's a different story. If the kid is living with me, no problem. But if the kid were taken away from me, then I want to make sure that my kid gets the money. Right, you're missing the key point though. The kid doesn't get the money. The money goes to the kid's life, the kid's lifestyle. The money goes to give the kid a roof, utilities, food, education. The money doesn't go to the kid. The money goes for the kid. I don't have any problem sharing this. You guys know that I'm on disability. You've seen me have outbursts, and some people have messaged me, dude, you got to calm down. Well, imagine those in real life. Those would get, those would get bad if they were heated face to face. That's why I don't leave my house. I'm a recluse. My wife goes into public for me. My wife goes into public a lot for me. We'll walk up to somebody and I'll be on the phone. I'll be like, hi. They'll be like, well, we need you here in person. I'll be like, that's not happening. I don't leave my house. I go to the gym. People leave me alone. I'm non-confrontational at the gym. If people get confrontational with me, I just walk away. I'm a recluse. I don't go out in public because the switch back here that you have like 3 switches that keep you from hitting people. 2 of mine are out of order and the other one is stuck in the off position. I get money for my kids. I get a dollar amount every month for my kids. My kids know that I get that money for them. And my kids get uppity. My middle one, well, my one below the middle one gets uppity about it. She's like, well, you don't give me very much money. You're right, I don't. The money goes for you, not to you. The money goes for you. Now, that doesn't mean when you need something, like she sometimes pops in my shows secretly, so I know what I got her for Christmas. And she'll be happy at Christmas time. But she's got to remember the money goes for her, not to her. On the other side of the fence, one of my take-ins, the baby daddy won't give her the money. And he's being a dick about it. And she's struggling. And I'm having to give one of my take-ins money. That's my godson's mom. I'm having to give her money because the baby daddy's not giving any money. But the bullshit part is he's not paying the court-ordered amount, but he still gets the kid all the time. See, that's where I think this is where I think there should be gender inequality. There should be gender inequality. And I'm going to say the receiving parent, the custodial parent should not have to jump through 17 flaming hoops if the providing parent doesn't make a payment. You're supposed to get $750 on the first of the month. First of the month rolls through, it's now the second of the month. The receiving parent should be able to go to the courthouse and just say, paying parent didn't pay me. Can I please get the form that says I don't got to let you see the kid? I don't think it should be a process. I don't think it should be wait 3 weeks to see a judge. I literally think that there should be a clerk that just handles all the court orders. So you walk in. Sorry, wintertime. You walk in and you say, I'm supposed to get paid $750 on the first of the month. I didn't get it. I'd like to void all the visitations. And then the clerk gives you the form. Until the $750 is resolved, your visitations are voided. Or maybe in order to stop people from showing up there at 9 o'clock in the morning the day after, maybe we make it 5 days. Maybe we have a 5-day grace period. You don't get paid by the 5th. On the 6th, you show up. Now you get the form. You send the form to the providing parent. Here you go. Or when they come to pick the kid up, you just hand them the form. Boom, here you go. You didn't pay me this month. You don't get to see the kid this month. Now it's on you. You have to go to the court. You have to make the payment. Now you got to take the proof of payment over to the courthouse. You got to get your rights reinstated. Then you show up with the green form. You know what I think would happen if people had to jump through hoops like that? I think what would happen is that the system would get so weighed down that somebody would finally realize the system's broken. Because the system is broken. Every system when it comes to gender equality, gender fairness is broken. Child support is one of them. I talked about the WNBA. I talked about the lawyer example. I think the problem, and I'm biased. I'm going to be honest. I am absolutely biased when it comes to this. Why am I biased? Why is Jay biased? I'm biased when it comes to this because I have 5 daughters. I have 5 daughters. I have a granddaughter. I have a godson. I have a grandson. But majority of my life are women. My take-ins are all females. Take-ins for me is I take people that are in shitty situations in life. I take them into my household. I live by a motto. And it's a good motto. I hope you guys share this one around. Because karma has blessed me, I don't build a taller fence to keep people out of my life. I build a longer table and invite people into my life. My roommate's a great person. She's a great human being. She lives with us. Really, she doesn't live with us. She occasionally sleeps here. Her stuff's just here. Do you know how reassuring it is to somebody when they know their stuff is safe? Sometimes people are worried about their stuff. George Carlin's routine, your stuff. I love all that stuff back there. In fact, if my office was on fire, the one thing I need to grab is that box that the little rocket is on. I have to grab that because that's the treasure box. My Gizmo makes me little treasures. That box is probably the most important thing to me in the room. I have a lot of important stuff in this room. I've got my awards from the Pentagon. I've got my medals. I've got my Form 9 and my retirement form. I've got all this stuff. But really, at the end of the day, if I have to take one thing out of the room, I'm taking the treasure box. Just filled with little treasures that my daughter has made me. Right? I'm biased. I'm the father of daughters. But even I say the system's fucked up. But I'm the person that says the system's fucked up both ways. I'm the guy that says, you know what, that's wrong, but you're wrong. You know, my daughters call me and they'll be like, I had a fight with my boyfriend, I had a fight with my husband. My eldest calls me, I had a fight with my girlfriend, my wife. I'll be like, okay, you were wrong. And my kids get all, what do you mean? You were wrong. Dad, you're supposed to be on my side. No, I'm not an enabler. I'm your dad. I'm your father. When you're wrong, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. You were wrong. Go apologize. Go apologize right now. And they get all mad at me. They get all salty. You're supposed to be on my side. No. The one thing I don't tolerate, my kids all know this. All my kids know this. Don't ever call me and tell me that you're threatening your spouse that you're going to take the kids. The kids are not a pawn in the game. Unfortunately, it happens all the time. The kids are a pawn in the game all the time. I know a guy lost custody of his kids for shit he didn't even do. Guy got charged with parental abandonment. He was deployed. He was deployed. His wife dropped the kids off at a child turn-in center. The kids are telling DCFS or Children Protective Services or whatever it was in that state. The kids are telling the processing person, we know our dad's first sergeant. We know our dad's commander. We have a bunch of phone numbers. We know grandpa and grandma's number. They processed the kids into the system. The kids spent like 8 days in DCFS holding. Grandma and grandpa went and got the kids. Grandma moved into his house so that the kids could stay in their school district. The guy got home and lost custody of his kids in family court. The guy lost custody of his kids luckily to his own parents. And it took the military getting involved, and it took lawyers getting involved and politicians to get involved. And DCFS just didn't give a shit. They were like, the dad wasn't available to come. We left the dad messages. And the dad's like, my phone was off. I was in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever the hell he was. He's like, my kids were literally giving you my first sergeant's phone number, my commander's number. The people who could have gotten me on the phone back home in 48 hours. I will tell you my time as an IDO, an installation deployment officer. I got a guy home in like 76 hours. From the time his wife died. His wife was in a car accident. His wife died. As soon as that happened, the Red Cross contacted me. I went up the food chain, and there's this form you fill out, and it's basically like, it's kind of like this really brilliant form. It's a routing form. It's called the I don't got time for this shit form. You use it. You better not abuse it because it'll be the end of your career. You just fill out, I don't got time for this shit form. You sign it, and people immediately see it. People see this form color come in, and they're like, yep, give me that. It's like, I could have a stack of work on my desk like this, right? And everything goes underneath it. But the I don't got time for this shit form comes in, and it immediately goes to the top. We got the guy. We didn't tell the guy what happened over the phone. We told him there's been an incident. We need to bring you home right away. Your kids are fine. I guess his brain didn't put two and two together when we told him his kids were fine. Guy gets home, got a priest that we meet him at the airport, got a chaplain there, got a shrink there. The kids are there. Got the guy home. It's like 76 hours, which is fucking. The guy didn't even go back and get his shit. We got the guy. The guy was where he was. We got the guy. We brought the guy home with the shit that he was wearing. Took his weapons. And the rest of it, he just came home. His shit got packed and sent to him. So it's possible to get somebody out of the AOR very quickly. But this other guy's kids get taken away 8 days, I think, 4 or 8 days. I think it was 8 days. I think it was just over a week. But the mom dropped the fucking kids off. The mom was like, nah, return to sender. Don't want these. And she waited till he was deployed to do it. You want to talk about gender inequality, gender equality? I had a guy that worked for me. The guy was destined to be the guy was going to be a chief. Guy was destined to be a chief master sergeant. He was brilliant at what he did. He was getting ready to deploy, and his wife divorced him. He comes to me and he says, I need to delay my deployment. I was like, I can't. You're needed. You're needed where you're going. I said, you need to go, and I'll do my best to get somebody spun up to go and replace you early. And so I put out a call, and I was like, hey, I need any of the people that are going to replace my guy to be spun up early and agree to do like a 9-month tour. Guy gets home, everything's gone. Everything was gone. And that's why I say people sometimes they feel better about their life if they know their stuff is safe. Guy gets back, everything is gone. Bare walls. Picture's gone. His stuff is gone. And you know what? The problem is that when you get divorced like that, sometimes there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. We want to talk about gender equality. We want to talk about gender inequality. Woman takes everything when she leaves the man. She's not going to go to jail for it. If a man took everything from a woman, holy shit, he would be in court. I am all about saying to the other gender, I guess the other genders. Let's try to be more inclusive. I am all about saying I will 100% stand shoulder to shoulder with you and call out toxic masculinity. I will call out toxic male behavior. I will call out inequality. I will stand shoulder to shoulder with you and do that. But the price for that is that the other side has to call out toxic femininity. They have to call out the unfair treatments. They need to call out where they're getting the benefit. If they want me to call out where they're getting the detriment, they need to call out where they're getting the benefit. And I think that if we really had a discussion on gender inequality, we would find that as an aggregate, it's fair. It's unequal, but it's fair. If we take everything into account. Now, it goes back to the phrase, you're going to get everything you want, but you're not going to want everything that you get. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about that one. Sometimes you have to recognize you got what you wanted, but you didn't want what you got. Kind of like, you want physical fit, you want gender equality. I think if the military is going to continue to be the arena in which we promote social reform, then I think that everybody should have to meet the same PT standard. You have 5 years. You have 5 years to meet the new PT standard, or you have 5 years to meet this one, and then we're gonna bump it up. Now, why 5 years? Well, because if you've got people that have been in the military for 15 years, those people are gonna just retire out. You've got people that have been in the military for 10 years. You got to give them an opportunity to kind of phase out. Some of those people never would have made it into the military at all. But I think just like I say, we got to change it with the schools. I say if you're in the military now, you got a waiver period to get to the new standards. But January 1st, 2023, everybody's on the new PT standard. Period. Boom. You're done. If you want equal, let's make it equal. So, with that said, thank you guys for showing up. I think this time works for me a little bit better because now I can go do breakfast, like lunch, breakfast, brunch. And then I'm going to be back later today on my other channel doing my thing. These videos will all be available on YouTube if you think somebody could benefit from seeing them. Thank you guys for being here. Having a few people to talk to does make these topics go a whole lot easier and a whole lot better. Remember, these are also available on Spotify. So we're going to kind of grow this into 2023. If you are on my other channel, my gaming channel, please make sure that if I start to get political on my gaming channel, call me out and be like, Jay, you have a podcast that you talk about politics. Keep the politics off of the gaming. With that said, I will see you guys in a couple of hours over on my gaming channel, and I will see you next week. I will be here next week for the podcast. It'll be a Saturday. We'll do a little Christmas podcast, and then we'll go about our lives. I will see you guys next time.